so you have obviously proximity to the city of Richmond, and you've seen the unrest. It's one of the centers of the unrest in the country. Thankfully, we didn't have nearly the deaths that other cities have had. We've seen a spike, tremendous spike in a lot of cities in this country relative to violence in particular, a lot of murders. What are you proposing along these lines as far as police reform and quelling the unrest?
I think our starting point needs to be that the police are not the problem. That is part of the dialogue here because the certain organizations have made them the dialogue. That is not to say that there are not bad police out there, but as an institution, I believe that our law enforcement agencies and police departments around the country are staffed with law-abiding patriots for the most part. Now, to the extent that there are people that are breaking the law, police officers and so forth, they need to be prosecuted and held to account. This notion, though, that what has to happen is somehow we need to fundamentally rewire our police departments around the country, at least rewire them, restructure them, but at worst, we all know about defunding the police. I think that is that is going in exactly the wrong direction. So, for example, with Abigail Spanberger, who I intend to be running against, and we'll know here after this coming Saturday, once I'm the nominee, Abigail Spanberger voted in favor of the so-called Justice in Policing Act. Now, in there was this provision that essentially eliminated qualified immunity. Now, for your listeners and everybody watching this, qualified immunity, once we eliminate that, what that will mean is that police officers will have to carry malpractice insurance in the same way that doctors and lawyers do. The bottom line is that having that provision in that legislation allows Democrats like Abigail Spanberger to say, hey, I never voted in favor of defunding the police. However, she voted in favor of a provision that will absolutely gut and change the ability of most people to serve in that capacity. So when you ask me, what do I propose? Well, first thing we need to do is make sure that we pull away from this narrative that it is the police that is the issue.
First, I would have to agree with you on that. I don't have to agree with you. I do agree with you on that. We've taken one bad cop in Minneapolis and extrapolated him out to the entire country to the point at which New York City has cut $1 billion out of its police force, including the entire plainclothes division, and they wonder why crime is spiking and murders.
That's right.
It's absolutely staggering to me that we're actually reliving what we know to be true, especially on qualified immunity. I don't think people quite understand what that means for the average. And I just had a Richmond City police officer at my counter for lunch today, talking about what it's like to be on the front lines. And it's staggering what the impact that this has had on the people who do the job every single day. The defund the police, though, I mean, it's a horrible narrative to have out there, even if you're even – I hate that Republicans are making political hay out of this because I just don't want this discussed at all, because – if we're talking about reforming police, you're going to have to invest in better training, better equipment, better modes of behavior to get better outcomes, and to cut funding at the same time. It seems to be a little counterintuitive. We would never do this for our education system. We would never do this for our healthcare system, to cut funding to make it better.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. And let's think about it, though, Chris. And I like what you said about how you don't even want to talk about it. Well, along those same lines, I have to tell you that what is being thrust in front of us and the rest of the citizens and patriots here in the Commonwealth and around the country, what is being put forth as the issue race, injustice, policing, what have you. That's not really what's at issue. What is at issue, and why it's so infuriating that our career politicians out there are not speaking on this issue. What's really the thrust of these movements and these organizations is the existence of the United States of America as a republic. We are facing organizations that have it as their stated goal to pursue the implementation of socialist policies, and then ultimately to restructure the United States as a socialist country under a socialist system. Now, that might sound hyperbolic, but I take these organizations at their word. They've stated that that's their goal. We need to take them seriously and understand that we are being, quite frankly, distracted and taken away from the actual focus, which ought to be preserving the republic, making sure that we defend religious liberty, free speech, the market, and our ability to live our lives. And that's really what's at stake here. And unless we are able to reestablish law and order in our streets, no one will be able to benefit from the promise of the American dream.
I think you touched on, great answer. I think you touched on, Andrew, the organizations that are leading some of this. And for a lot of folks, myself in particular, I've had to openly delineate between supporting the movement of Black Lives Matter. I support that. I don't support the organization because I read what they believe and it scared the hell out of me. They want to take down the Western idea of the family.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
People don't understand the depth of what this organization is actually trying to achieve its ends.
Yeah, and it's insidious because of their clever marketing. But here's my view on this, Chris. If someone is going to be willing to recite those words and even split that hair between the organization and then the concept, we must acknowledge that the price was paid, and the proof that Black lives already matter in the United States of America, that was proven back during the Civil War, and it was paid for by the blood of over 600,000 Americans. So for us to sit here in 2020 and pretend that somehow there's this direct line from 1619 to right now, and it's been nothing but pure injustice since then, that is an assertion that's absolutely false. This great nation paid the price for what some refer to as the stain of slavery. So we need to acknowledge that. We're not perfect, but I also have to ask the question, compared to what? Compared to what? There's never been a better time to be alive and on this planet than right now, and there is no nation where that it is better to be a citizen and able to live your life in the United States of America. So again, I think that clever marketing, that term, is a distraction. And I think that there's this insidious intent behind it. So we need to start talking about and thinking about Americans and America mattering. And that's one of the reasons why I have such faith and confidence in President Donald J. Trump. And not only did I serve him for 2 years, and we voted, my family and I, we voted with our feet, but I see what he's doing, and he's holding the line against this wave of anger and discontent that is really intended to keep law-abiding citizens' mouths shut. That's what this is about. So before any mantras are recited, whether or not the words independently sort of make sense. We need to acknowledge who's putting that mantra forward.
Absolutely, 100% agreement. I also noticed, I mean, I think I saw some information that there's been 75 murders since George Floyd's death in Minneapolis. In New York City, 75 people have been murdered. Every single one of them have been black.
Yeah.
It's really heartbreaking. We lost a family friend, 26-year-old young man, African-American, shot, father of two, shot 10 times outside of his apartment back in Stanton. You know, I think we've lost this whole narrative of what can be done by working together. And when I read the Black Lives Matter, What We Believe section on their website, not once, Andrew, did I see the word father or dad. And it was heartbreaking because you look at the statistics, they're not anecdotes anymore. They're broad statistics. And you see transgender mentioned quite a bit on their website. You see cisgender mentioned quite a bit, but there's no father mentioned. And how important is that in our society?
Yeah, I mean, it's critical. It's critical. Fathers matter. If you want to say anything, you know, fathers.
Where's the companion website? Black Fathers Matter more, frankly.
Yeah, and look, fathers, and really the nuclear family matters, right? And that is something that is antithetical to these Marxist organizations, because at the end of the day, those organizations of that type regard the state as, and the collective as, the only thing that matters. And then sort of hanging over that is that very thin, small number of the elite who gets to make all of the decisions. But Chris, remember how we got on this topic. You asked me about courage. And I brought this up as an example of the sort of courage that we need to be seeing from our party. Right now, I'm the only candidate in this race for Congress in the 7th District spoken out publicly on the topic. A statement back on the 4th of July, a couple of Saturdays ago. And you can go to my website, andrewnaggs.com, look under the media tab, and it's probably the second entry there, and it's on the mob attacking America. And it's a very clear statement. I talk about courage, but I also talk about the fact that we have nothing to be sorry about, and we have nothing to be ashamed of. But also I talk about the fact that when these questions of renaming or tearing down monuments or whatnot, I say no. I say no to mob rule. And if a question like that, you know, removing a monument or changing a name needs to be decided, then we don't do any of it until we've restored order to our streets, and we put those questions through the democratic process rather than doing it by fiat at the behest of the mob.